Hey Kathy, I want to make a short video for you on Benji. There's going to be no e-collar involved or anything like that. This entire video is just going to be more about pressure release techniques and drives. So I've got Benji. You can't see it, but right here Leah's out in the yard with part of the pack. She just got back from the walk. So if he sounds off in that direction, or any direction, it's because something's popped up and you can't see it in the camera. But should be, as you know, that's prey drive. Let's go. So what I'm not going to allow is for him to stay in that very long. And I'm going to use pressure on my long line to move him. So I only have, let's go. I only have tension on the leash when I'm trying to communicate with him. So if I'm not trying to get him in this position or recall him or put him on place or just walk with him in general, my leash is going to be very, very loose. And when he's doing this, that's when I'm going to add the leash pressure. And right there, I have discovered he does a lot better at with a pop when he's already in that motion. He can sit there all day and hold leash pressure off of a dog. The e-collar will actually be, once he's e-collar trained, I'm going to use that as the tool for the dog and eliminate the leash entirely because I can tell, having had so many different handlers in his life, the leash is actually a part of his issue. He doesn't like it, and if you put too much pressure on it or pressure on it in the wrong way, he's actually going to react. So one of the things I really wanted to emphasize is you really being cognizant of your leash. You know, when you dropped him off, you wanted him to explore my driveway, and it looked, you know, a lot like this. Well, not like that, but where he's actually in front of you moving around and you're walking with him, and the leash was taut the whole time. You're going to teach a dog to pull on a leash if you walk with them while there's tension on the leash. I don't walk with dogs if there's tension on the leash. I stop walking and I can either change direction, or I'll do this, or I'll guide them into the position that I'm looking for. Let's go. But you know, I don't walk with them when they're in front of me either, but I never will walk with them if there's tension on the leash. So one of the things you got to get into a habit of is, oh, there's leash pressure, I can feel it, I'm going to stop moving forward and move him back to me so that he understands he can't get away with that in order to move forward. And that's exactly what dogs learn. They learn that the human is not consistent. So if I put pressure on the leash, it's give or take whether or not I'm going to be allowed to continue to walk. And what he's learning with me is, I'll never walk with you while there's tension on the leash. He's also learning from me, I'll never walk with you if you're in front of me. So, you know, he might be in front of me, you know, right now he is working through his bullshit, but I'm not going to walk up to him and go, well, hey, you looking over there? Well, let's go check it out. Because this dog doesn't actually know how to make good decisions. So I'm not going to give him decision-making opportunities until I actually can tell that he knows how to make the right one. He's never been shown how to make the right one, and on his own, left to his own devices, he makes poor decisions. So that automatically tells me that this dog is not going to do well with decision making or freedom until he understands the expectations. And the only way to help him understand those expectations is with consistency and creating an environment where there's no freedom. Good job, buddy. You're really good. So the pressure release part comes in when I'm being directed. So right now my leash is very loose, and he's walking with me very nicely, but he just breezed out in front of me to check out the dogs in my yard. You did that on your own, buddy. Good job. That's a sign of a better decision, because I didn't add leash pressure. Instead of fixating on my dogs, he decided to come back to me on his own. So that's a glimpse of a better decision. And that's what I need to see across the board, or I'm going to go, hey buddy, go do your own thing. Alright, so this is the best session I've ever had with him. It's kind of obnoxious because he's not doing a lot of the shit that he normally does, so I can actually show you how I handle it. But right now he's underneath the camera. So I'm going to get behind him out of his peripheral. There's a car passing behind the camera as well. That is the start of my recall. I'm going to add a little, so this can be, I'm going to just turn it into this as the recall. But he needs a good invitation, so now I'm doing this. So I'm going to add some pressure every time I want him to move in the direction that I want him to move. And the best way to do it, I'm going to get behind him. And I'm going to add some pressure on the leash right there. And then he releases it. Teach all the dogs is a pressure release. You know, sit, pressure on the leash. Good. It releases when they sit. Let's go, pressure on the leash. It releases when they turn and walk my way. Recall, pressure on the leash, all the way in. Now, the here position is what I refer to when most people would say heel, I say here. And that's a harder one for my clients to mimic, but basically I'm going to do almost a figure 8 style. Pressure release, very hard to see on video. Pressure release, pressure release, pressure release into this position. So that the leash, let's go, the leash pressure turns on when I need something from him, when I need him to change direction or do something for me. And so he starts to learn when the leash pressure turns on, that my handler is communicating with me. So right here, little pressure, good boy. Little place, pressure, little sit, pressure. So what he learns is that pressure means my handler is talking to me, and that's going to build that pack drive. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I'm going to add some pressure on the leash to indicate it's time to get off place. So that pressure, what do you want? You know, that form of communication, he also has to at the same time learn how to turn it off. Because right here, I'm going to bring him over here. But what you notice is that I'm not turning off the leash pressure until I get what I want. So he's learning that it's an indicator of communication from the handler, but what do I have to do to turn the leash pressure off? And that is either one of the many commands that he's being taught right now. Let's go, Benji, come, sit, place, here. You know, eventually there'll be a kind of heel, I walk like this. My clients walk like this. So the dog's like, holy shit. I really don't like that feeling. There's tension on that. Like, I was taught I can turn this off. How come when I'm with my owner, I feel constant pressure? You know, and then at the same time, oh, awesome, I'm gonna keep pulling and walking forward because this has no significance anymore. So you're gonna wanna make sure you're paying attention to your leash. Don't walk with him in front of you, really, period in the story. Don't walk with him with a tense leash, and then when you need to give him direction, add leash pressure, and add the leash pressure in the direction you want him to go, right? So I'm going to get behind him because I want him to come here. I want him to sit, so I'm going to do the opposite pull up. It's kind of this opposite game, right? Let's go. I want to put him on place, so I'm going to create pressure right there. You know, I want you to go this way. So the brain also, not only does the pressure release have an indicator of I'm communicating with you, but in placing your leash in different directions, it allows you to manipulate the dog to get into the position that you're looking for. So, and the sit is the only one where it's that opposing pressure, you know. Because if I went like this, to get him to sit, that's how I teach him down. But if I'm trying to get him on place, I need to actually point the leash at the place board. There's the car. Good. So prey drive, right? So that's the pressure release part, right? Loose leash until I need to communicate with the dog. If the dog puts his own pressure on the leash, which he does, he'll take the line and then he'll sit at the end of it and put his own pressure. You need to stand there, get behind him, so you can get out of his peripheral vision and create that leash pressure that's going to bring him back to you. And if you look at that packet, it explains the long line angle in terms of the recall, so you can kind of see where I position myself out of their line of sight in order to influence them to come back to me. Now, I'm going to layer the e-collar over all this eventually. Right now it's on, but I'm not going to start it till tomorrow. Just trying to desensitize him from wearing it. And I'm going to layer my e-collar stimulation over the top of this leash pressure that I'm presenting to him in every single scenario, right? So he's going to have an e-collar, let's go. He's going to have an e-collar, Benji, come. He's going to have an e-collar, place, down, sit, all of it. And it's going to mean an electronic leash because I'm going to be layering it over the leash pressure, so the representation is going to actually be the same thing as the leash. And this helps bring so much clarity to the e-collar work, and then it allows for off-leash reliability as well as a really quick form of communication that I found that my clients benefit the most from because a lot of my clients aren't very good with their leash skills. So it allows them to have an invisible form of pressure that influences the dog in the same way that you see in this leash session. So that's a brief explanation of pressure release. If there's anything about that that's confusing or that you don't understand, I would love for you to write the questions down and ask me at the midweek, because it's important with this guy that you know how to use a leash. He's too smart, and he's going to take advantage of you. Let's go. Now, I'm going to create movement based off his drives, right? So when I'm working him this whole session, I'm waiting for this type of shit, and then I'm backing up. And I know you already know part of this, but the more I start to actually get strict about what drive he is in when I'm working him, the higher the pack drive I'm going to lure out. And when he comes back to me, it's hard. He doesn't have a lot of pack drive yet, but I'm already starting to see it. So right now, now there's a car coming. And that leash was loose until he hit the end of it. And then I just tried to add the least amount of pressure possible. Now you're all wrapped up, you dingus. I'm going to try to add the least amount of leash pressure possible. Maybe a little pop for him because he gets a little crazy, but I'm not going to be real harsh because he's very sensitive. Let's go. And I'm going to redirect that fixation that he has, that prey drive tendency he has on that car, and that redirection puts him in tack drive. And when that teaches him a couple different things. One, it brings the tack drive out of him more. It teaches him I'm not going to walk with him when he's in prey drive, and I'm sure not going to put a bunch of leash pressure on him in this setting because that'll make him explode. He will react if you do this when you see a car. A lot of people do this for safety. You'll never see me do that unless it's an emergency situation, you know, because that will make a dog lunge. So, and then the biggest part of what I just did with the car and also with the pack is this recall off of it. You know how I'm backing up and I'm recalling off of it. That's actually teaching him an alternate behavior from running at things. He wants to run at everything. By backing up and recalling him, I'm actually teaching him that he can remove himself from the situation and he'll actually feel better as a result because the stress levels are going to be as high. So I'm using that pressure release to help him make better decisions. Let's go. Eventually, this guy's super smart. I've already noticed, and you can probably already tell in this video, the dogs and cars are still a thing, but on day 3, they're already very, very much less than they were at day 1 because I am gradually showing him that he on his own can make a better decision that will ultimately make him feel better. Pressure, release. Good. Now my timer went off, so I gotta wrap this video up. I will have plenty more to come, but if you have any questions about what we went over today, please ask.